This cheesesteak sandwich strikes the perfect balance between cheese and steak, but the best outside of Philadelphia? That's a bold statement. Let's see if we can live up to that statement by making the iconic Philly cheesesteak today. So let's move right to the ingredients. As always, a detailed list of the ingredients will follow in the description below. Today for the marinade, we're going to need some neutral oil, some salt and pepper, some Worcestershire sauce, some soy sauce, and of course, the star of the show, the steak. Today we've chosen flank steak. Flank steak cooks up very quickly. It has a lot of fat, which will translate to a lot of flavor. For the rest of the sandwich, we're going to need some chopped onions and peppers. I've chosen some green peppers, some red peppers, and some yellow peppers just for variety of taste and color. You can also throw in some spicy peppers if you choose. This is a sandwich, so we're going to need a sub roll or a bun of some sort, and of course, cheese. Your choices of cheese are limitless. You can use any cheese whatsoever that you desire. In this case, I've chosen some provolone and some spicy habanero pepper jack. So now it's time to cook. In a hot pan, add some oil. You don't need a lot of oil because remember there's oil in the marinated and there's fat in the beef. So maybe a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half of oil. Allow your oil to heat up another 20 or 30 seconds. That'll depend on how hot the pan was before you started. Now add your beef. Right here is the sound you want to hear when the meat hits the pan. That lets you know that your oil was hot enough. Put all the meat in the pan and spread it into a single layer. Once you get the meat in a single layer, leave it undisturbed for a minute. Don't touch it. Walk away if you need to. Just let it sit undisturbed. And as you can see, after a minute, we're starting to get some browning on the second side of the meat. That's a good indication that it's time to turn it over. So go ahead and flip the meat on the second side. Don't worry about getting every single piece turned over. After we take it out, there will be some carryover cooking while it's waiting for the vegetables to cook. As you can see, we got some nice browning on that first side. After about 30 seconds or so on the second side, it's time to take the meat out. Do not worry that every single piece of meat is not cooked. As we said, there will be some carryover cooking and the meat will go back in the pan at the very end to warm back up with the vegetables and melt the cheese. Now it's time to throw the vegetables in. So get them in the pan in a single layer. Once you get them in the pan, stir them around a little bit to make sure everything's coated with oil. Now after about 30 seconds or so, I realized that I needed to add a little more oil. Added another teaspoon and a half of oil, stirred everything around again, and let it sit for a good 7-8 minutes undisturbed, just sitting. This allows the vegetables to cook through and the onions to soften. After the 7 minutes or so, your vegetables should be not fully cooked yet, but fairly soft. It's time to add the salt and pepper mixture. This is the only seasoning that's going in this dish other than the marinade at the beginning. So I added about a teaspoon and a half of the salt and pepper mixture. Once that's added, stir it around and let everything sit again for another 2 minutes until the vegetables are almost completely done. Time to add the beef stock. I know, you're saying, what beef stock? You didn't see any beef stock at the beginning of the video. Unfortunately, I forgot to add the beef stock into the shot with the ingredient list, but it is listed in the ingredients below. So add the beef stock in. Beef stock is optional. You don't have to add it in. Once you add the stock, stir it around to pick up all the little beef bits on the bottom. That's going to help enrich the beef flavor of the dish. Now just let that cook until it reduces. That'll take a good 4 or 5 minutes. Once most of the liquid is gone, you can add your beef back in. Make sure you get all of the juices that had accumulated in the bottom of the bowl. Spread that evenly throughout the mixture. Let that warm up for about 1 minute. And now it's time to add the cheese. I'm adding the provolone here in the pan with the meat and the vegetables. The pepper jack is going on the buns to gently melt. I'm not using a ton of cheese here. I've had a lot of cheesesteaks that are more cheese than meat or more meat than cheese. I was striving for a perfect balance here between the meat and the cheese. Once your cheese has been added, cover the pan, turn off the heat. Allow this to sit for about a minute, minute and a half. And then there you have it. There's your filling for your cheesesteak. And now that you've cooked it, It's time to serve it, eat it, and enjoy it. Just look at how juicy that is. Look at this. You can see that the pepper jack is just barely melting, provolone melting throughout. When you take a bite of it, the meat is perfectly tender. It's really juicy. The vegetables have just a little bite left to them, and you can see the meat is just perfectly red inside. I think you're really going to enjoy this cheesesteak. There's a perfect balance of meat to cheese. Nothing is overwhelming the other. Really good. Thank you for watching. Please check out our next video so we can continue our culinary journey together.